On the 8th of March 2014, a Boeing 777 plane, bearing IATA flight number MH-370, with 227 passengers and 12 crew members including 2 pilots, took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia for Beijing Capital International Airport in China. Airplane took off at 12:41 in the morning and reached the cruising altitude of 35,000 feet successfully. But after the 38 minutes of takeoff, that is at 1:19 am, air traffic control lost the communication with the airplane when the plane was over the South China Sea. At 1:21 am, as the plane was about to enter Vietnamese airspace over the South China Sea, the plane's transponder, which communicated with air traffic control, was switched off. But after the 9 minutes of disappearance, Malaysian military radar initiated the tracking of MH-370. At 1:30 am, voice contact was attempted by another aircraft at the request of Vietnamese air traffic control, but only mumbling and radio static was heard in reply. As per military report, the plane deviated westwards from its planned flight path, crossing the Malay Peninsula and Andaman Sea. And finally at 2:22 in the morning, it disappeared from military radar at range of 200 nautical miles from northwest of Penang Island in northwestern Peninsula, Malaysia. And this disappearance of MH-370 is the biggest mysterious event till date. On the same day, in the morning 5:30, Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center was activated for search operation. And at 7:24 in the morning, Malaysian government releases press statement saying that contact with flight 370 had been lost at 1:30 in the morning and a search and rescue effort had been initiated. Many search operations were carried out between 9 and the 13th of March, but the investigation turns into mystery when after 6 days of the accident, on the 14th of March, British satellite company, Inmarsat, publicly acknowledges they recorded transmissions from the aircraft for several hours after it disappeared from air traffic control over the South China Sea. Inmarsat provides Malaysia with an initial analysis of the communications with Flight 370. Malaysia discusses the information with United States investigators and agrees to allow the US to investigate the Inmarsat data. Investigators find that a 7 times log-on request, or satellite handshakes, was sent by the aircraft on its satellite communication link to the Inmarsat satellite communications network. And based on this information, investigators estimated the location of mishap. Investigators marked possible locations on the basis of handshakes. Analysis of the signal could not locate the plane precisely, but determined that the plane might have been anywhere on 2 arcs, one stretching from Java southward into the Indian Ocean southwest of Australia, and the other stretching northward across Asia from Vietnam to Turkmenistan. After further calculations, based on remaining fuel, weather conditions and cruising altitude, investigators tried to find more precise location, and this location was termed as the 7th arc. Again, search operations were carried out and again there was no result. In April 2014, all surface search operations were terminated, and underwater search operations were started in the hope that underwater locator beacons will give some clue. Here we would like to tell you that underwater locator beacons, or ULBs, are electronic devices that guide search and rescue teams to a submerged aircraft by emitting a repeated electronic pulse. During search many signals were detected, but analysis of signals showed that all were different from desired signal. Several search operations were carried out, and in October 2017, 20 pieces of debris were found and believed to be from MH-370, recovered from beaches in the Western Indian Ocean. 18 of the items were identified as being very likely or almost certain to originate from MH-370, while the other 2 were assessed as probably from the accident aircraft. Between 2014 and 2018, several joint search operations were carried out, and many private firms showed the interest to continue search operation. Recent search operation was carried out by Ocean Infinity, and on the 9th of June 2018, company reported that the search had ended unsuccessfully. Then what happened to MH-370 actually? Were the investigators making a mistake? Many questions were intriguing into the mind. The first question that comes to mind is, why did the plane deviate from its path? It is possible only when pilot makes a decision, or if autopilot is reprogrammed. But who can reprogram the autopilot? US investigators believe the most likely explanation to be that someone in the cockpit of Flight 370 reprogrammed the aircraft's autopilot to travel south across the Indian Ocean. In 2016, a leaked American document stated that a route on the pilot's home flight simulator, which closely matched the projected flight over the Indian Ocean, was found during the FBI analysis of the flight simulator's computer hard drive. This was later confirmed by the ATSB, although the agency stressed that this did not prove the pilot's involvement in the investigation. It was reported that between 1:07 am and 2:03 am, the satellite communication link was lost. It is uncommon for a log-on request to be made in flight, and in this regard investigators assumes power interruption as culprit. But if there was power interruption problem, then why pilot didn't report it to ground station? Generally, air crash accidents are categorized into 3 categories. Number 1, in-flight upset like stall. Number 2, a glide event that results from engine failure or fuel exhaustion. And number 3, an unresponsive crew or departure event. According to air crash investigators, departure event suits the best for accident, but no consensus exists among investigators on the unresponsive crew or departure theory, because if no control inputs were made following flameout and the disengagement of autopilot, the aircraft would likely have entered a spiral dive and entered the ocean within 20 nautical miles of the flameout and disengagement of autopilot. But the analysis of the flaperon showed that the landing flaps were not extended, supporting the spiral dive at high speed theory. Flight 370 was carrying 221 kg of lithium-ion batteries. According to Malaysian investigators, the batteries were assembled on the 7th of March and the consignment was transported to the Penang cargo complex, where it was loaded onto a lorry for transfer to Kuala Lumpur International Airport and onwards by air to Beijing. At the Penang cargo complex, the consignment was inspected by MAS cargo employees and Malaysian customs officials, but did not go through a security screening before the lorry was sealed for transfer to the airport. The consignment did not go through any additional inspections at Kuala Lumpur International Airport before being loading. Lithium-ion batteries can cause intense fires if they overheat and ignite, which has led to strict regulations on their transport board aircraft. There were many possible theories, but all of them were ruled out due to lack of evidence. Many criticize the failure of the Royal Malaysian Air Force to identify and respond to an unidentified aircraft, which was later determined to be Flight 370, flying through Malaysian airspace. The Malaysian military became aware of the unidentified aircraft only after reviewing radar recordings several hours after the flight's disappearance. The failure to recognize and react to the unidentified aircraft was a security breach, and was also a missed opportunity to intercept Flight 370 and prevent the time-consuming and expensive search operation. In 2016, the ICAO adopted a standard that, by November 2018, all aircraft over open ocean will report their position after every 15 minutes. In March, the ICAO approved an amendment to the Chicago Convention requiring new aircraft manufactured after the 1st of January 2021 to have autonomous tracking devices, which could send location information at least once per minute in distress circumstances. ICAO emphasized on new technologies that enable data streaming direct to the ground. Because short battery life of underwater locator beacon attached to aircraft and less memory capacity of cockpit voice recorder proved as modern technological failure.